Alright, welcome back. Today we're gonna watch a video about time by Veritasium. I feel like this is the same as Vsauce, right? These are like the same dudes as Vsauce. They kind of started around the same time. This one was like 6 years ago though, so there's a good chance I might have seen this already. But I read an article and this kind of popped up after I read the article about time, so seemed like a good idea to just watch it.
I remember when I was a kid waiting an hour for my favorite TV show to come on, which was Sharon, Lois, and Bram. That felt like eternity.
The article was about how it was mainly about how Einstein viewed time as an illusion. I didn't like outwardly research it extended besides that quote that they quoted from Einstein, so I don't even know if Einstein really said that, but you can really only go off of, what you're reading. But it was just saying that Einstein had an idea that time is illusionary because it's a self-concept that humans internalize that's not really found anywhere else in nature. It's just something that we keep up with, since the sun really has no notation in how forward progress is happening. And bugs don't give a shit. When we only give a shit because we're on the planet and we have these 2 cycles. But if we were on a different planet that didn't have these cycles, we wouldn't really care about it, right?
Eternity. But as I've gotten older, everything seems to have sped up. Time is going much faster. That's something virtually everyone agrees upon.
Yeah, I feel like it does.
Oh man, so much.
Each year sort of gets faster and faster.
But why is this? Is it just an illusion, or are there good
What about like everyone else is like, nah, it doesn't. He's just only putting the people that are like, yeah, time is going faster.
scientific reasons why time appears to go faster as we get older? Well, I'm working with the National Geographic Channel's Brain Games, a show that explores the inner workings of the human mind through experiments and interactive games to test out some theories about why this actually occurs. There is a reasonable sounding argument that says each year goes faster because it makes up a smaller fraction of your entire life.
Let's say I was only 20. 1 year is only 1/20th of my age. When I'm 67, 1 year is 1/67th of my age.
This graph shows 1 year as a percentage of your life at each age. But what I find weird about this is if you add up the area underneath the curve, you'll find that you've already lived half of the total by age 6. So I really don't think this is how our brains perceive time.
You really think that like a day now
Of course
is...
not.
I think that
He just doesn't want to sound crazy, bro. But like, just believe it. If that's what you believe it, bro. Who cares?
there are better reasons why time appears to speed up as we get older. So I've come to Venice Beach to find 2 groups of people, the older and younger, to see if their perceptions of time differ.
So what I want to do is I want to set my timer going, and without counting, you tell me when you think a minute is up.
Let's go.
Start.
Okay.
Everywhere around the world, when this experiment is performed, older people typically overestimate, while younger people measure it quite accurately.
Why would you not just count 1/1000s?
All right, probably stop.
Yep.
Whoa. 1 minute, 2 seconds. A minute and 2 seconds. A minute and 5.
As we get older, the rate at which our neurons fire, or our neuron conduction velocity, it decreases. And you can think of this firing rate a little bit like an internal clock. And so if our internal clock is slowing down, that would make everything else, external time, seem to be speeding up.
There was this so Vsauce did this video about the movement of the Earth, just like the Earth throughout the solar system, and they made that video like, I don't know, like 7 years ago or some shit. But then Kursagat, the duck people, they made a video that released today. It was today or like yesterday, about how the solar system moves and how the planets move in a helix, like a spiral around the sun, and then the sun moves in a spiral around the Milky Way, right? And if you look at our DNA, that's how it's shaped because that's how the movement of the planet is. But there has to be other planets that like move in a different way because of like the things around them. So that means that their DNA would look differently because like the force is forcing our DNA to be shaped like that in like a molecular level. Because like we don't feel it like this, right? But if we kept shrinking and shrinking, we're being shaped by the movement of these two celestial bodies.
I'm going to tell you the time.
Now?
Now.
1
I
minute.
don't know when it popped up.
That's it?
Maybe you
That was
saw
1 minute?
video today.
1 minute.
Minute, 17 seconds.
Not bad, right?
Not bad.
I thought I'd be a lot closer actually, but I guess I wasn't.
Do you want to know what it really was? 1 minute 47.
No way, it was almost 2 minutes.
It was almost-
Actually almost 2 minutes.
What the hell was he
It
doing
really is
for 2
amazing how
minutes?
fast time flies by. It really is.
Our sense of time, or chronoception, is not like one of the standard 5 senses. It has no specialized receptor cells, and it does not appear to be localized in just one part of the brain. Perhaps this suggests that it's not one coherent thing at all. But it does seem that our perception of time is very fundamental. Studies of rats have shown that even with their neocortex removed, that is the higher order thinking part of their brains, they're still able to learn how to time 40 seconds accurately. That's quite remarkable, and it suggests our sense of time evolved early and is one of the fundamental functions of the brain. But that doesn't mean
Can we see that video? Why would they not show that video?
our brains always represent time faithfully. For example, have you noticed that really good movies seem to go by much faster than they actually are? Or do you notice that your vacations fly by? There are good reasons for this. When we're focused on something, we don't notice the time is passing, and that makes them feel in the moment shorter than they actually are.
At its best, this results in a mental state called flow. This can happen when playing sports or video games.
Or artists when they're fully engrossed in their work, or people meditating. So I would argue another reason
That
time
guy
speeds up as we
zoned.
age is because we are more often engrossed in what we're doing. Another thing that appears to make time speed up is repetition. I'm going to show you a series of images, and I want you to consider how long each one appears on the screen. Are you ready? Go. So which one appeared to last the longest? If you're like most people, you'd probably say the dog. But all of those
That's
images
the
actually
longest.
appeared on screen for the same length of time. The dog seemed longer because it was novel, and therefore your brain had to invest more energy in processing it. What's remarkable is that our sense of how long something
dog
is,
was
or
the
subjective
fastest.
duration, it correlates highly with how much energy we're using in our brains. Now, if you study how much energy people use in their brains over the course of their lifetime, you find that it peaks around age 5. If you think about it, this kind of makes sense, because when you're a kid, almost everything is novel to you, and therefore your brain needs to use more energy. Fully 66% of your resting energy intake, that's used by the brain because of all of the novel experiences. And that must at least in part explain why time appears to go more slowly. So
I feel like you use so much energy as like a 5-year-old because that's when you can like conceptualize objects very well and attach meanings to them and attach things like how we formulate like sentences. They always have to you always have to go back to something to figure out what a word is. Like there's no word that's just the word. Like there's like a word has a million meanings, and a million has a million meanings. And we don't know that as a kid, so we're still trying to adapt and like put meanings into words. But then as adults, as we like already set it in stone, we can just recollect those really fast, and we don't have to use as much. And it's like our neural pathways are set in stone, or are set so we can travel that faster than having to like build the foundations for our knowledge bank of like, this is a microphone. As a kid, I don't know what a microphone is. I have to like be explained what it does, how it's made, and all these things that we kind of forget because we already know them. But as an adult, you like look at a microphone, you know what it's used for, you know how it can like works in a basic level, you know how it's made in the basic level, you know what the parts are in a basic level. But it took you, you know, all that time as a kid learning and processing and just using up energy to try and put meaning into these words that you're learning.
What can we do to slow time down? Well, studies have shown that being afraid
Probably
increases our perception of time.
Really
When
slow that shit down if you
arachnophobes
die.
were forced to stare at spiders for 45 seconds, yes, this is a real experiment, those arachnophobes judged that experience as lasting much longer than 45 seconds, as you'd kind of expect. Plus, experiments involving skydivers or people falling show that they judge their experience to last much longer than it actually is. Another time when time appears to pass slowly is when you're bored.
You know, when you're waiting and waiting, that's all you think about. So it seems
I don't remember where I like read this or heard it, but you can alter, if you alter your state of mind slash being, you can like slow or speed up time. So if you like drink alcohol, you can essentially speed up time, right? People always like, oh, I blacked out, or last night was a blur, like all those sayings. You're speeding it up because you don't want to. You're just not perceiving as much when you're on alcohol. And then you can take something sensory such as hallucinogen or LSD, mushrooms, and you're slowing down time because you're perceiving so much things, like so many things is coming to your brain that you're slowing down time for you because you have to perceive all these new sensations and things that you're not used to because it's an altered like being state of being, which could like result as the same thing when you're maybe drinking alcohol, but then as you're doing that more and more, then you kind of get used to that sensation and you speed up that process. And the brain is really all about speeding shit up, but some of those things you can't really speed up because you don't know how a hallucinogen is going to affect you. You don't know how weed's going to affect you. You don't know how like certain drugs are, even though alcohol is basically a drug.
seems like time drags forever.
Since there is so little to focus on, you are acutely aware of just how much time is passing, and so these boring moments drag on and on. So if you really want to slow down your experience of time, you could scare yourself, take up extreme sports, get into accidents, and intersperse all of that with periods of boredom. But this viewpoint ignores one important fact, which is that we don't experience time as just one thing. We think about time as it passes, but also as it has passed before, when we remember it. And those two ways of looking at time, they don't align. So for example, holidays, they feel like they go by really fast, but when you think back upon them, they last a long time. That's because you had a lot of novel experiences and your brain formed a lot of memories. And it judges the duration of that vacation by the number of memories that were formed. All that novelty means lots of memories, means it feels like it took a long time, but in the moment, it felt fast. This is the paradox, the great paradox of our perception of time. If you want time to go slowly, there are a lot of things you can expose yourself to that will slow time down, but they won't necessarily be pleasant. So maybe the happiest life and the longest remembered life is one where time really seems to fly. It's like Einstein said, put your hand on a stove for a minute and it'll feel like an hour. But sit next to a pretty girl for an hour and it'll feel like a minute. So what would you like your life to feel like?
Why Einstein sit next to a pretty dude, right? How long would that feel? An eternity? Alright. That was pretty sweet. I don't know about speeding up or slowing down time. I was really hoping it was more of like goes into the concept of time itself and why we chose to perceive the actions of the sun as time passing. What if we like perceived it as something else? Like what would we be? Because you think about it, we monitor everything by time, right? Like the time of day, when we go to work, when we eat, all these things. Just because like it's our routine and it helps us stay focused and on schedule. But like what if we didn't use that and there was something else? Of course, have no fucking idea what that something else would be or how that would look like, because that would require a metric ton of not really thinking, but of forgetting how time is used, because you'd have to replace time as an instance throughout your whole entire existence, the whole existence of the human race, to think about what the world would look like without time, because that'd be the only way to accurately depict what it would look like. But I don't got time for that.